Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to discuss EKG lead placement and appropriate placement to the leads and how you can get a best tracing. Before we get to actually put them on the leads, there's a value talking about the electrodes themselves. This is an AMBU electrode. It's a wet gel electrode as opposed to a dry gel electrode. Why that matters is because wet gel electrodes are 100% weather sensitive. They are just like potato chips. If your bag stays sealed, your potato chips stay fresh. If you open up your bag before you should have crispy, stale, no good potato chips. And before you put the lead on, the electrode on, it is worth noting that these AMBU electrodes have some dots on them. And those dots are a bit rough and stiff, and they're designed to clean the skin. What we're learning in medicine is that there are still hardworking men and women, farmers, mechanics, that still get a layer of dirt and grime on them. If you want your electrode to stick better, take a moment and use those and clean off the site. Now, I'm not talking betadine in concentric circles like you do for an IV, but just take a moment to clean the site of that dirt and grime on before you put it on. If you do those two things, keep your electrode sealed up and clean the site before you put it on, you can have two realistic expectations. Number one, it's realistic to expect the weight of the cables does not pull the EKG leads off. If you believe that the weight of the EKG cables pulls the weight off, that tells me that your your electrodes are stale. Number two, you'll get a cleaner, better tracing sooner. It should not take 3 or 4 or 5 screen cycles until you get a clean tracing. It should be crisp, clean, quicker. When we're talking about 3-lead or 4-lead or 5-lead electrophysiology, the placement isn't as precise. If we're going to talk about 3-dimensional cardiology or 12-lead electrocardiograms, it's an EKG because Einthoven was German, by the way, then lead placement must be precise every time. The measurements we're getting and the comparative analysis between other EKGs matter. Clinical recommendations for these time, 4th intercostal space, parasternal for V1 and V2. Please, 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 ladies and gentlemen, every time count it down. Don't eyeball it. 1, 2, 3, 4th parasternum for vector 1 on the right side. And again, before you put it on, take a moment to clean the spot. Take your finger and actually put a white blanch spot on so you know precisely where it goes. Please, please, please do not eyeball them. And then I'm going to take the exact opposite side, and I'm not just going to eyeball it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4th intercostal space, left parasternum. I do it a bit differently. I then go over to V6, vector 6, and I count 5th intercostal space, mid-axillary, essentially tip of the pit. Clean it off, then put the lead on. Next to that, anterior axillary space, front of the armpit for V5, 5th intercostal space. I'm going to repeat myself again. Please clean it off before you stick it on. Vector 4 or view 4, mid-clavicular space, 5th intercostal. Find the clavicles halfway down and go here. And yes, I'm using clinical presentations for all of this. Please, again, don't forget to clean the site. The laugh about V3 after we've talked about all of these clinical presentations is it simply goes, quote, in between. Clean the area, and in between it goes. Now when we discuss limb leads, they are called limb leads for a purpose. And every gentleman or lady that has been in the wilderness and runs a compass knows the difference between magnetic north and true north. EKG is actually measure the distance or the angle of electricity. And if you don't have the angle correct, then the device you're using will lie to you. So electrophysiologically, it does not matter if you're down on the wrist or up on the shoulder, because you cannot get to this point without going through this point first. But what would be clinically incorrect is to put it on the core. If you put them on the core, your tracings will not be accurate. So for here, I'm simply going to choose to go on the biceps. I'm going to peel it off. Also, good advice is don't put them on a huge hairy spot. Don't put on muscle. Go ahead and feel free to put them on don't put them on bone. Put them on a muscular site. Nice thick muscle. Not on a lot of hair. On a place that those two aren't. Clean the area. It is worth mentioning to be square, to consider measurements equal. If you're going to put them on the shoulders, then go ahead and put them on the hips. If you're going to choose to put your EKG electrodes on the wrists, then I would choose to put them on the ankles to keep a box square and consistent. Consistency matters very much with electrophysiology. At this particular time, I'm going to choose to put them on south of the iliac crest. As long as they're, to be technical about it, 10 centimeters outside the myocardium, then it works. So shoulders and hips are reasonable. Thank you.